Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And we're here with our February 2022 Block of the Month. Just to let you know, Shelley's allergies are bothering her today, so she won't be talking as much. She sounds very congested.
Yes.
So, this block is kind of a variation of a block we did last year. Basically, it adds another point, another side. It makes it the star like more faceted.
Right.
And I can't remember if we made a big block last year, or if we made 4 little ones. Either way, it's similar. So what we're going to start with, I'll go over the fabrics that we need. We need your focus fabric, which if you're a guild member, we will have available for sale at guild meetings. A white fabric, and 2 or 3 coordinating fabrics that kind of go with the colors from your focus fabric. So of these specific fabrics, first thing you have to do is decide what you want your background fabric to be. Now, I would not make it your focus fabric. It's just way too much of that fabric. But it could be a color like I used, or a white like Shelley used in her block. And so of that background fabric, you need 4 6.5-inch squares. So then of your other fabrics, now you have a choice here. We want you to use your focus fabric and the white for sure. And so if the white isn't your background, then you've got 2 colors already of your facets of your star. And then on top of that, we want you to add at least a coordinating fabric or 2. I use 2 different coordinates. So I have a coordinating fabric as my background. There's my white, there's my focus, and then I have this green and blue also. And Shelley used white, and then she just used her focus, and she repeated her other 2 fabrics. So basically you need 4 rectangles of these facet fabrics that make them up. And so you can divide that between 4 different things, or, however. Okay. So those need to be 2-inch by 7-inch. And I mean, that's not an exact measurement. If you had something that was like 1 3/4, I wouldn't make it a lot fatter than 2 inches, because that's what keeps the points kind of thin and delicate. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is to take those parts that are going to be your facets on the star and make 2 stacks of them right side up. And then, because these facets go on different sides, you actually have to make a diagonal cut, 1 stack in one direction and 1 stack in the other. Now at this point, you still don't have to decide which one you want to be the more prominent fabric, because the second piece that you put on each of these, there'll be more of it. Like here in mine, I did the white and black, the focus fabric second, so these pieces look smaller. I mean, you will have to at some point make that decision, but for now you're just cutting, and you need to cut one direction and one the other. So I'll do that real quick, and you can do it freehand, or you can do it with a ruler. I'm just, I'm going crazy and using a ruler today. But make sure they're both right sides up, because if you don't do the 2 basically the opposite directions, then all your pieces will be the same and you won't be able to make it right. So now this stack becomes one direction and this becomes the other. So after you have those pieces cut like that, you're going to take, Shelley, can you put up yours?
What, one of these?
Yeah, just take your block down. And what we want you to do is decide, at this point now you're deciding which fabrics you want to have the bigger amount of fabric showing. And so put those aside, you do those last. And then this fabric, you're going to see like which corner it fits into. It's either going to fit into a corner like this, or if it's the other cut, it fits into a corner like that. Okay, so I can't make this one do that corner. See, it's not shaped right. The diagonal is wrong. Okay, so you put that on. So what we want you to do is take one of those and put that on the corner and pull it back a little bit so that it sticks off from the edge off of this side at least about a a half inch. Sorry, a half inch. And this side the same way, and actually if you set it on your mat, and you put it like, if you put the corner, what I found, like you don't want to use your cutting mat for really accurate cutting, but for this kind of placement piecing, you can do that. And each of those squares on your cutting mat are 1 inch generally. So if you set that like, so the corner hits the middle of one of those squares, and then you set this so it hits the boundaries of that same square, you should be about a half inch off on both sides. And then you're going to do the same piece 4 times now. You're going to do it on each of your blocks, but because these rectangles could be different. I mean, I stacked mine and cut them, they're pretty the same, but you might want to do them individually and match them up specifically. But you're going to set that on there, and then you're going to put a ruler against it, right so it butts up against that. Pull this away so you don't accidentally cut it, and then you're going to cut that corner off. Now, there's actually 2 ways to do this. You don't have to do it that way. The other way is to, like how Shelly did hers, she just kind of eyeballed it back and forth. Is it going to cover the corner? Sewed it on, and then cut it away. And that's kind of a way you do it with paper piecing. Mm-hmm. But this, to me, you have to cut it off anyway. So it's like, why not do it now, make it a nice clean edge to cut against. And you don't accidentally cut off something you shouldn't. So we want you to take one of the stacks of 4, find out which corner, make sure you're going with the 90-degree corner that goes on, and you're gonna do, like I said, cut that off. When you put it back on, make sure this top corner sticks off of the edge 1/4 inch out, and you're going to sew it back on there. Press it to either way. Press it to the dark. It doesn't matter. Just press them the same. Yeah. And then we'll be back and we will show you that. Well, you actually have to trim them back down to a 6.5 inch block. So do that too. And then we'll be back. Okay, so we have our first point put on. The next step is pretty easy. I want to back up a second. Shelly, when she was doing hers this time, she did cut them all the same, right, so she could do them as a repeat, but she basically did one.
Right, I did one, cut the piece off, this piece off of the white, sewed that one. Yep, it fits. Then I used that piece I cut off as a template for cutting the other 3.
Right, so she just laid that over the edge and then
used it.
Okay, yeah. So that's another method. Okay, so now this next piece, this corner goes, it just covers that same corner. So you know you're right if you're working on a corner that you just added, okay? And we're gonna do the same method where you put it on, pull it back so a 1/2 inch shows, and cut that off, and then sew them on. And once again, we're gonna press them to the dark, whichever way seems best when you do it, because they won't intersect.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they don't intersect. So, and then we're going to trim them back to the 6 inch square, and then we'll be back. 6.5 inch square, sorry, and then we'll be back. All right, so now we have all of our facet pieces sewn onto the stars. I do want to go over, it's a pretty simple block, but there are a couple of little pitfalls that I want to cover. When I mentioned putting, when you're sewing this piece on, you have the ends stick up 1/4 inch. it's not always actually 1/4 inch. The actual way to find the right place, it's when you lay that piece on there and you go to your sewing machine and the needle comes down and it's right at that point where they meet. That's the exact right point where it should always make it so that no matter what your angle you're doing, it comes up right. It seemed to me on my first ones that I put on, it was about 1/4 inch, but on these ones, it was more of an 1/8 inch. And that will mess up whether it fills the corner if you haven't, if you do a bigger seam or something. Okay, the other thing is that these pieces, it is such a slight angle when you get down to the bottom. It's very tempting to pull this piece down along the edge and just keep sewing it on that end. But it doesn't go that far. You have to remember that this folds back, it's going to fold back, and there's a point. So you really should have a point here. And if you miss that, it will definitely distort your block and it won't look right. So if you're having trouble and it's not coming back to 6.5 inch, look at that end.
Right,
and
because it's on a bias and you're probably stretching it a little.
Yeah, but definitely it's almost easier if you sew it with this trimmed side up so that you can see where the point should end, because there will be a lot extra on that triangle.
That's true.
Okay, so now we're at this point where we're basically, this is the ease. I didn't trim this one, I'll have to go and trim it. But you're going to sew 2 together.
You figure out which ones where you want them.
Right. I mean, there's not really
too many options, but it depends on how many fabrics you've used, right? Which ones you place where. It could.
Right. There's really not many options,
No.
but there's a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you're going to sew 2 and 2, press opposite directions, sew the top and bottom together, and we'll be back with our finished blocks. You shouldn't have to square them up. You really shouldn't have had any extra.
6.5 inch. Then you're scant 1/4 inch now.
Yeah, just to make sure you get the full size block, and we'll be right back. All right, here's our finished blocks. Oh, we didn't bring our 12.5 inch ruler up here, but they both measured 12.5. We are fine. They look spectacular. Shelly and I were just talking about how much we like this block, how pretty it looks.
Yeah.
All right, so have fun making this block. Don't get frustrated. It's actually very easy. Use for your background. I mean, at this time of year, you don't really know what you're going to have extra, but the background definitely you need more of.
Right.
So, all right, so these blocks, like I said, are due at the March meeting, and we will see you.